Oi oi people, Silky here, and you're listening to the Lifer Musician Podcast, a podcast exploring the minds of creatives who've dedicated their lives to pursuing a career in music. The Lifer Musician Podcast is brought to you by Hookings Management, my artist services company that empowers our fellow D.I.Y musicians to grow a monetised fan base without a record label. We offer a range of services such as online marketing, artist mentorship, release campaign management, videography, photography, graphic and website design, plus tons more useful services that are built to cater for independent musicians on small, self-funded budgets. Helping musicians market and monetize their art form is our passion. So if you're an artist that needs help taking your career to the next level, please feel free to reach out and get in touch via hookingsmanagement.com, where you can book a video call with me for some free advice on your project. On today's episode, I'll be joined by my hugely talented creative pal, Bradley Tyler. He's the lead singer in successful D.I.Y band 2 Year Break, and also a highly skilled videographer, photographer and marketer, and I have the pleasure of having him on my team here at Hookings Management. If you're an aspiring musician that's trying to get your music heard and build a fan base, then you're not going to want to miss this, as Brad's hacks and methods have helped both his band 2 Year Break and other bands he's worked with through Hookings Management build huge monetised fan bases D.I.Y. Let's get into it. Oi oi Bradders, how you feeling after the weekend, mate?
The weekend, yeah, Dog P on tour. First tour that I've been on with you, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
what's
always
that
been
first
festivals.
headline tour as a band, to be fair, because of COVID and all that?
I would say it was there was a bit of stress, but like positive stress. The rest of it was all fun, laughs. I had great company from Ellis over there.
Big shout out to El.
And yeah, it was nice to see my friend and I guess boss / manager doing well, like seeing all the crowds.
Thanks, man.
I said to a few people, I did get a little teary on one of the shows, even though I think that was the Glasgow one where some of them people there might have just seen you for the first time. There was something about it in one of the songs, and you said like, "We are Def Guitar Pop," and everyone. It was just a moment. It was a vibe, and I laughed it off because I've got control of my emotions, Ollie.
Nice one, man. Yeah, it was good. We were, thanks to you and El and everybody else, we were like a well-oiled ship, weren't we, at the weekend?
I actually really enjoyed being a bit like having a bit of control's the wrong word, but having a bit of like authority and responsibility to be like, well, I need this happening here. Yeah, it was quite a bit daunting at first, but then after like the second, after doing it properly at Newcastle, I was then like, yeah, I'm quite down for this. I actually think I'd like to do it more often, sort of telling everyone where things need to be and what's going on at what time.
Yeah, man.
I'm excited for the rest of the tour.
Did a
Hopefully
good job,
get
mate.
better at it.
Cool. So that's enough about our shit. So let's talk a bit about your background as a musician. Where did it all start for you? And has the journey been tougher than you thought it would be when you first had the desire to pursue some kind of career as a musician?
Big question. Lots of information to try and fit into a small answer. I don't know when it started. I actually don't. I don't know when it. I know when it got serious. I don't know when it. Like, I just in year 9, so I would have been like 13, 14. I really wanted to play an instrument. I actually took 2 lessons of saxophone. But it was just because they were like freebie lessons to try and get people into doing musical lessons. And then my mate started doing drums. So then I thought, well, if I learn guitar, then we can be like in a little band together, and that might work. So I asked my mum if she'd help get me guitar lessons in school. I did them for a little while, and then I sort of went, I didn't really like sitting in that room. Not that there was anything wrong with the guitar teachers. I just liked being able to go home and listen to like pop punk and metal and learn them instead of like, here's some scales and like
Free Blind Mice.
Play like, although I just like play the classic like Smoke on the Water all the time. I just like, they're cool songs, but I want to go play the things that I listen to at home on the regs, and that's kind of, I guess that is where the music started. And then from then I was in like just silly little like friend bands. And I had a metal band called Cullen the Pantheon, and a very complicated name, terrible idea. No one remembers no one will ever remember that name. So it was when you're making a band, you want to try and get your band name.
It was a metal band, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
I think that's a pretty solid name.
Are you going to
for a
remember
metal band.
culling the Pantheon? Some people didn't even know what culling means. So like lots of people would call us different names, and I was anyway, it was a metal band. I was a guitarist, and I did a bit of songwriting in it, and then it wasn't really going anywhere or doing anything, and I was in a part of my life where I was like, I need something new to like distract me from other things. And my friend Charlie, who was in 2 Year Break as the singer and guitarist, we were at Comic-Con, which I know I've probably told you before, but for the listeners out there, it's a new story for some of them. I was at Comic-Con, he was dressed as Augustus Gloop with chocolate all over his face.
I need to see pictures of that.
And he was like, I overheard a conversation about him. He wanted to step down or something, like he didn't want to sing anymore. And I always point out this bit because it's a compliment to myself, I guess. I've never sung before 2 Year Break. I did like the odd occasional backing vocal, but it was like really, really subtle and brief. So when I heard that he was stepping down as a singer, something in my head was like, oh, this might be an opportunity to do something different. So then I went up to him and was like, oh, I heard you were, like, as if I like kind of didn't know, kind of like trying to get him to say it. And he was like, I don't want to be the singer anymore. I don't want to quit 2 Year Break, but I don't want to be the singer anymore. And I just went, I'll do it. Like, I'll audition. I had no idea that I'd be able to sing in any way, shape or form, but I just said, I'll do it. And then I'll hit up the guy that was producing all our music for the metal band and asked him if he'd let me come to his little studio and do some covers of the current 2 Year Break songs that they had.
I didn't realise that was what went down. So
so I sung.
You like re-vocaled some of Charlie's tracks in the beginning as an audition.
Yeah,
recorded them in
the
studio.
City was one of them, I think.
Oh yeah, the City,
and Floors or something.
Do you still play the City?
Not anymore. We did when I first started, because when I first started, we were like transitioning from all of their material to like what we were starting to write. So there wasn't enough songs to play a show unless I did sing the oldies, and people still liked them ones at the time. And it was obviously mainly just family and friends, so you like didn't want to disappoint. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I went and did those covers at home, sent it to Charlie and the boys in the band, and then they had me do like three or four like rehearsals with them, and then eventually they just went like, I don't want to be like egotistical, but Charlie said he sings them better than me, so he's definitely in.
Wicked, mate. Cool. Okay, so you smashed your audition. So you went in the studio, recorded some demo versions of the songs. So re-sang Charlie, who's now the rhythm guitarist, backing vocalist. Well, actually, he's rhythm and lead now, isn't he? In 2 Year Break.
Yeah, now he is. Yeah,
but he was the lead singer, and he'd had enough of being the lead singer, and they were in the market for a new singer. You decided to audition, so you recorded some versions of it first. They liked that, and then you went down and done 4 rehearsals with them before they
it was 4.
said you were in the band.
Yeah, and weirdest, I've never sung before. Like there was one backing vocal in one of our metal songs that I would always sing, and I did think to myself back then, I was like, I'm not that bad at that, but I never thought I'd actually be properly singing. And yeah, them 4 rehearsals were really quite nervous. That was a very nervous experience. The whole experience was very daunting and scary, but if I'm so glad I did actually do it, because if I'd have let my inner demons be like, oh no, you're not worth, there's no point trying this or whatever, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now for sure. So I'm glad I did it, because it helped me. Before then I was always a bit of a plain sailor, and I'd do everything that's kind of that'll be all right, it's safe doing that. Whereas this was a more of a this is not, this could go anywhere, and this is a bit of a, not a risky move. You're just auditioning for a band, but it's a bit
taking
more out.
yourself way out your comfort zone, aren't you? I think a lot of creative people, a lot of musicians don't realise their potential because they just get too frightened to step out of that comfort zone, don't they? And fear of being judged and making a fool out of yourself. Like, I don't know about you, but I have made a fool out of myself on stage plenty of times. You know, I played years and years of shows, you know, from the age of 14, 34 now, and I think we got good like about 5-6 years ago maybe, or I got confident as a front man and learned to sing properly, and all the years prior to that it was amps blowing up on stage and voice cracking during the gig and squeaking and or not being able to hear yourself in the monitors and singing out of tune the whole show. You have to go through this like sort of a lot of humiliation really to kind of like harden yourself, do you know what I mean, and sort of develop the thick skin that you need to become like an accomplished performer.
Yeah. Well, I did that with my metal band. That was where I broke all the strings, like we forgot amps or guitars and had to like borrow things, or like obviously I didn't sing, so I didn't have that. No disrespect to any other people doing like any other kind of instrument other than singing, but like when I was behind the guitar, I felt a little bit more safer than now when I do now singing, because if you scuff a note up, it's not as embarrassing as going like or whatever with your voice. Like, that's embarrassing. And I did that. There was our first show with 2 Year Break was me singing. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I know it was in Camden, and we did all of the original songs that Charlie would sing on. Like, I sung them all, and then we debuted Change My Mind before it was even a recorded song. And when the show was like over, we still had like 10 minutes left of our set, like allocated time, and people, like our friends, kept going like one more, whatever. So we were like, okay, we'll play The City again. But that was because I'd already just sung a whole thing, never sung before, the amount of notes that went really skew with throughout there, and it was really embarrassing. But I'm now less embarrassed if it does happen, because I'm used, like, a voice is a voice, and you can't be perfect 24/7.
Yeah, and like the sort of type of alternative guitar music that both our bands make, it's very punk in its ethos, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, one of the greatest vocalists of all time, in my opinion, is Kurt Cobain, and his voice used to crack
all the time,
constantly, and he sang out of tune a lot, and that. You know, Damon Albarn, Liam Gallagher, like, they can be a bit pitchy, but it doesn't fucking matter, because their voice sounds great, and they're like fucking fully committed to the performance, and they mean every word that they sing. So yeah, it's a fucking vibe, innit? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, like, but it is when you're learning to sing and your voice is cracking and you're going out of tune, or you can't hear yourself in the monitors, or all of the above. It's quite a sort of debilitating experience, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, the monitors thing, really quickly. I think I'm going to defend all vocalists out there. If you're using the monitors that you get at when you go play a show pub and you
gig.
pub gig or something, they're never loud enough, and there's so many noises going on.
You usually got cymbals by your ear, like,
it's so hard to sing perfectly with them. But I've keep banging on about it. Now I've got them in ears, I'm not scared anymore, and it's like, so actually, basically what I'm trying to say is I think vocalists maybe could cut yourself some slack, because if you're using monitors, it is really hard to hear yourself. So don't worry if you go a little bit out of tune. Get some in-ear monitors from ACS.
But you need a good engineer, or you guys. Nice,
so there's a little plug there.
But you need a good engineer, or you guys have got to be good at operating the setup, haven't you?
Yeah, no, there is obviously lots of like little details that do come with getting in ears, but once hearing yourself properly is like the most important thing, I think, for vocalists. So if you have because there's some shows I played where the monitors do sound really good. It's like, and they're the shows I always come off going like, oh, we smashed it, like, I felt so good about that. But then there'll be the shows where you couldn't hear yourself properly, and you're like constantly second guessing whilst you're singing, thinking like, am I in the pocket? And did I do that right? I have no idea. So
yeah, I had a bit of that on Saturday night, actually. The monitors went down for like 2 songs.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
The ones right in front of you?
my
Your
wedge
monitors.
Yeah. But I went out into the crowd and got up on the barricade so I could hear the front of house PA.
Oh, so that wasn't
It's
just
like a
you
good
trying
hack.
to be
Well, it
cool
was a bit
lead,
of both, you know?
cool front man. You was actually tactical.
Yeah, a bit of both. Yeah, but I think that's definitely something that I like when I performed in my first band. So I was 15, I think, my first gig. I got the band together when I was 14. But yeah, my first ever gig was at the Hermit Club in Brentwood, just down the road, the old youth club. It was a bit of a like grunges like hangout. I used to love it there. You know, I used to watch bands there like every Friday night and that before I was in a band, and it was really inspiring. But yeah, I remember. So our school used to do like a yearly concert there called Tattoo the School, and for States of Emotion's first gig, we booked this gig at Tattoo the School, signed up to do like 3 songs, and we had about 8 months to get our shit together and play 3 songs, and we wrote these 3 songs. And in rehearsals we was like really tight, really confident, and then at the show none of the monitors worked in that gaff. Like it was sort of notorious for it, and the gig went really well, everyone loved it, but I was like a fish out of water. I had
no idea what's going on.
like whether it was shit or good or whatever. I just remember the thought going through my head, like, how the fuck did I ever think I was going to do this for the rest of my life, you know? So yeah, it takes a bit of time, doesn't it, to get used to being on stage and having to put up with, as a vocalist especially, having to put up with shitty mixes or you know, monitors that aren't working properly or whatever. And that's definitely one of the toughest aspects in it of being a vocalist, especially at grassroots level where you're playing pub gigs and that, where the rig's not as good, and like I say, you got a drum kit like right
especially the heavier music you're playing, the more crash cymbals are kicking off in your ear as well. Yeah,
man. So cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, we'll talk all about you know, the finer details of how 2 year break of, we'll get right into how you guys have you know, built a monetised fan base over the past few years. But before we get right into all that, let's talk a little bit about how we came into contact with one another and started working together. Go ahead, mate.
When I was sad and lonely. No, well, I was actually, but yeah, no, I joined 2 year break. We did change my mind. We released I think a decent music video, especially our first song, like with me in it. And we've got a professionally recorded music video done, and we'd really like thought out what we kind of wanted to do with it, and it was like your classic cliche pop punky music video back then. And I think you must have seen it, and because we sort of all work in that everyone sort of works out that same rehearsal studio, the White Room, which at the time was in Raynham, or had it moved to Home Church?
Yeah, it was in Raynham, yeah.
But that White Room, you obviously knew a lot of people there, and I'm assuming you already knew of 2 year break.
Yeah, I knew Charlie and the lads, yeah, before you were in it.
And then you basically must have seen Change My Mind and saw something in us, and you just started up your mentorship kind of service, which is what it is now today, Hookings Management. Was it called Hookings Management then still?
Yeah.
And then you hit us up and was like, I think I can, like, you basically just you wanted to chat with us and talk about everything, and we vetted the shit out of you.
And good on you for doing so.
And I think even then, didn't like we say some things that helped you shape how you ended up going about certain, I feel like you had a notepad and you was writing things down, and we come back to you with like, we'd be happy with this kind of thing, but we were like, is there a version of this? I might be talking out my arse here, but I feel like there was something we said back then that helped you.
Yeah, I can't really remember how we structured it. But yeah, like you guys were like my 3rd or 4th client, so this is going back, this would have been 2018, wouldn't it?
Yes.
It was 2018.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was us. Yeah, I joined TYB like October 2018 or October 2017, November 2017, and then we took a whole 8 or 9 months to kind of work out what we wanted to do with me as a vocalist, and then we released Change My Mind in September 2018, or was it 2019? Do you know what? I don't know.
I've had a mental blank of like when I started this company. I'm pretty sure it was June 2018 was when I started this, because the first ever Guitar Pop album come out late 2017.
Whilst you're talking, I'm gonna see when this Change My Mind come out, and if it says 2018, then that means that song's only 4 years old, and that makes me feel a little sick.
Yeah, and maybe you weren't one of my first clients. Maybe I had been going for a little while. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter when it was.
Yeah, it was early days anyway. I don't think I've been going for like a year at that point, offering that service. So it was still pretty new. And yeah, you guys were like super professional from the get go. Like you, like really like vetted me. I respected that, because, as I've spoke about on this podcast before, I'd wasted a lot of money paying like shady marketing companies to do bits and pieces that never come through with what they promised. But I think my angle with you guys was I'd always been a fan and sort of got on well with the boys just from saying hello down at the studio and stuff. And I'm pretty sure it weren't 2 Year Break, actually. I think it was Tower 8, which was an early version of 2 Year Break, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just a bit of history. I was in year 7 or 8, and they played like a battle of the bands. And I think, yeah, they were either called Tower 8 then, or it was just before they got called Tower 8. So I've watched them since I was in year 7, and now it's quite funny that I'm now best mates with Charlie and we're like singing together. But yeah, it was... Tower 8 was like their first edition.
Yeah, so Tower 8 supported States of Emotion at the bitter end, like many moons ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then it evolved into 2 Year Break. And I remember just sort of like, you know, sticking my head into a few rehearsals and that when we'd be rehearsing down White Room. And yeah, I was mates with Charlie and George, I think, on Facebook. And yeah, saw this video for Change My Mind being shared around, and was really impressed with the song and the production quality of the videos. Really professional video, like a really funny, like you say, classic pop punk concept. And I think I spoke to Mark, or Mark spoke to me. So Mark, that runs the studio in White Room, and was just asking about what you guys were up to, or maybe he was telling me like, oh, they could do some help, like. Yeah, and so you guys, I think when I contacted you, you were actually paying another PR company, weren't you? Like 500 quid to do like a promotional
get us in some really cool magazines. Really cool. Like they got us in nothing.
And I think how it went was I was talking to Charlie, and he was like, "Look, we're just going to do this thing with this promotion company, and then we'll let you know how that works out." And I thought, it's going to be shit. And I did kind of warn him as well.
No, I think I remember him
just
saying,
said, be careful, mate, you know, because I've wasted money on lots of different PR companies in SOE and that, and a lot of them, don't deliver on their word at all. And I kind of knew deep down, like, yeah, they'll be coming back in like a month or whatever to have another chat, because it's very rare you find a good marketing company that wants to work with like a baby band that's just starting out on a small budget and can actually do anything decent for like 500 quid. So yeah, obviously that you went through that process with them. They got you on a few blogs and that. It didn't really mean much.
Nah.
And then I think Charlie hit me back up. And yeah, we decided to, like, you guys were like paying me a monthly retainer, to basically like, It was like a mentorship and artist development service, wasn't it?
Yeah, and like the marketing side, like you would set up the adverts for us.
Yeah, and I taught you guys the Facebook ads, didn't I? So like in the early days of the business, before I had an office or anything, it was literally you and George turning up to my flat for the day, wasn't it? And we'd sit by the computer all day, and I would show you like what we're doing with Deaf Guitar Pop and how we can apply it to you guys. And yeah, just kind of walked you through the ad setup on Facebook, and you guys definitely had like a good marketing brain right from the start.
Yeah, I kept asking you question after question.
Yeah,
I think I wanted to do that.
Yeah,
well, I did want to do it as a job, because I am doing it as a job now.
Yeah.
I think I was working for a company that were like digital marketing.
Yeah.
But they didn't let me do much of it. Like they said it was a digital marketing role, but it was more just like making presentations for people to promote or whatever. It wasn't actually, you know, getting down to the nitty gritty of digital marketing. So when you would do them things with us, I would constantly be like hawking it, trying to see exactly how you was doing it so that I could learn it more.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, and I remember like when we were sort of like establishing what 2 Year Break's niche was, and you know the sort of artists that were most similar to you guys, so that we could get the targeting right. I was like really impressed with like how detailed yours and George's research had been. Do you know what I mean? And I think where I was a little bit out of touch with like pop punk and emo, because like
that was you saying some of the oldie ones.
Yeah,
like,
so I'm like Fall Out Boy, My Chemical Romance, and that, because that's the music I grew up loving. But then yeah, you guys were like Neck Deep, State Champs, like bands that I'd not heard of. Like, so you had to bring me a bit up to speed on that, didn't you?
To be fair though, Fall Out Boy did actually, as an audience, did a work for it, and You Me at 6, which was still an oldie.
Yeah, I think the Fall Out Boy ad. So just for context for the for the listeners, so how we've sort of built 2 Year Break's fan base together is through Facebook and Instagram paid targeting, where you target like artists that you sound similar to. You target the fan base of those artists through Facebook and Instagram's detailed targeting. So yeah, in the beginning it was Fall Out Boy, wasn't it, that you was getting all the traction
If
from?
I remember correctly, we did 3 or something, and it was like a You Me at 6 one, a Fall Out Boy one, and a State Champs vibe one. But then like within those 3, you'd have a bunch of other bands that were all like that band. So you had like you had 3 adverts, and they all said like, they all said something like, do you like Fall Out Boy? Then we might be your new favourite band or something. We used like a pizza emoji or something, because for some reason pizza's really popular in pop punk. And then you'd have like the same, but do you like You Me at 6? Then another one, do you like State Champs or something? And then like within each 3 of them bands, there was then a couple of smaller bands that were like put into those targets. We had 3 different style adverts, and then we picked one that worked the best. Which I can't remember what one it was. We might have even dabbled in like switching it up every now and again, but then eventually it went from that to then just being like, do you like pop punk? Then we might be your new favourite band. Yeah,
and we just threw a load of like relevant bands in there, didn't we? Yeah, so we tested a few different audiences. I think one was an old school pop punk and emo audience, when it's a My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, I think Blink-182 might have been in there.
It's really hard to remember them all, but like All Time Low was probably in there. Panic at the Disco probably went in that Fall Out Boy one.
Yeah.
And I think the You Me at 6 one was slightly more updated.
It was Twin Atlantic as well.
Yeah, they were in there at some point. Lower Than Atlantis, I think it was.
Oh, Lower Than Atlantis.
But I don't think that they're not a band anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, there was a load of that bands.
And then Neck Deep and State Champs, because they were like
that was like the modern...
Yeah, and they all worked well, didn't they? So in the end, I think the Fall Out Boy one was doing slightly better, but they were all doing pretty good. So to just give you that kind of broad pop punk audience that you were going for in the beginning, we just ended up clubbing them all into the one ad set, didn't we? And we ran that for a good few months, and that was how the initial fan base was built, wasn't it?
Yeah, so just to like, in case you haven't listened to the other podcasts or anything, like that is what we call fan finder, and that was like whenever we get a new band or start working with a band, if they're in that right position, that's kind of like the first go-to thing, isn't it? You make a fan finder advert.
Yeah, and shout out to Indiepreneur that coined the phrase.
Is that what they coined? Is that where they came up with the phrase?
Yeah.
Cheers, Indy.
So yeah, absolutely, man. So, and what sort of like budget was it? Can you remember like the daily budget that you were spending?
Yeah, it's quite funny talking about this, because this is one of the challenges we sometimes face when we're talking to new bands, about them coming round to the idea of like, you've got to spend money on things like this.
Yeah. And
obviously I was one of them people before where I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to spend that on like the adverts. I think we were only spending £5 a day, but I think we spent a little bit more to like work out what one was working, and then once we worked out what one was the best, we then just spent £5 a day for a little while. And then when we started seeing those comments coming through, we did not care that we were spending £5 a day. We were like, oh shit, people that have never like it's not our family and friends now commenting. These like some randomers from all across the UK, and they're commenting on my band, and that was the kind of turning point of from going from like, oh, this is a bit expensive. $5 a day isn't even that much in terms of marketing these days, but that $5 a day between us all, it felt really uncomfortable at first because we were spending money, but then as soon as you started seeing the results, that's when you come to terms with it, and you're like, oh, actually this makes sense, and I don't mind spending that money. And I mean, jumping now to the future, we're spending like about 900 sometimes a month on adverts, sometimes
the
less.
Band is monetised
yeah,
now,
so I'm jumping a bit too far.
No, it's cool.
That was back when we were like living off of
all just
Tesco
off the day
meal
jobs.
deals.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's an interesting point, really. Like, to add to that, what I find, working with a lot of musicians and just hanging out with lots of musicians, and having been through this kind of mental hurdle myself, like, your bands will go to like great lengths in terms of the hours they put in, like rehearsing, recording, playing like every fucking gig under the sun to know people, like not getting paid for it, and they'll spend money on decent recording studios, decent equipment. They'll happily go and lose money on a gig, maybe because all that stuff is in the comfort zone, and even though sometimes it's fucking gnarly and shit and like soul destroying, like it's all kind of like weekend rock star stuff, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when it comes to putting your hand in your pocket to pay for something like marketing or whatever, do you know what I mean? It's not as appealing, and I guess if musicians aren't sort of experienced in like business or anything, they're more they're more risk adverse, and they don't want to they've been taught that investing is risky. Do you know what I mean? And that I think that's a big hurdle, that especially in this current climate of artists, if they're willing to invest that money into the marketing DIY, they can build a fan base now, like you and I have, by just going direct to consumer and not relying on a label or radio, any mainstream play like radio and that. Like, it's awesome that those opportunities are out there, but what a lot of artists, what holds back a lot of artists is that mental thing of spending a few £100 a month and the worry of like not going anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And so that was, would you say that was one of your biggest like hurdles as a band, like getting over that, like, right, we're going to have to invest a lot of money to get ourselves heard here?
That, I think that's always a hurdle, and it always will be some kind of hurdle, no matter like how far in you get, because at the time then it was like worrying about spending a £5 a day, and then now 3 years later, it's that we might not be worried about the marketing side, but then we're thinking like, oh, we're doing a tour, have we got them, like, can we afford to do that hotel? And like your money will always be something that you have to like come to terms with, but as long as you know that it's going to be worth it in the end, then you just got to kind of push past it, because it's all we grow up knowing that like things cost things, and you have to be careful about, like, can you afford a house, are you able to pay this and that, like there's always that money worry. So then when you're doing it in a band where you're spending money that you don't need to spend in some people's eyes, then it's always you're gonna have that natural like pushback of like, oh, I'm gonna spend that money. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, mate. Yeah.
But I definitely have come to terms with it a lot more now, and I'm sure there'll be something in the future that I'll freak out about again, and then I'll come over terms with that, and then
I think as well that it gets to the point where it's not like, oh, should we invest this money? It's like, as the business grows, fan base grows, when things like that come up and you can see there's an opportunity, like, right, I need X amount of grand to promote a tour, or we need to fucking rent a tour bus or whatever the fuck it is, it's not like, oh, should we do it? It's like, how we're going to do it.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
right. It is.
That
Yeah,
changes from like should to like how, doesn't it?
yeah. Like I'm always sitting there. I think George, our drummer, who like just to point out, like all four of us do like our own different parts within the band to help it grow. And George is kind of the accountant and in charge of the money essentially. And I think I get on his nerves a lot because I'll be the one to just be like, let's just do it. Like we can get the money that way and let's just do it. Whereas he's always like, hold up, mate.
More conservative.
This is how we can do it,
yeah.
but let's be a little bit more smart about it. Whereas I'm just more like, like guns blazing, like get involved.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about that. It's quite interesting. So aside from like the music, you all have different roles within like the business of 2 Year Break, don't you?
Yeah, it's like, if one person was doing everything, that it just wouldn't be as functioning as it is now, because there's so many things that, like people, like when you talk to your friends and family or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, band's doing well, is it? Yeah, and you're like, you say, yeah, we're doing music. They don't really see or understand necessarily, because they're not in a band, how much has to all happen for things to work. So we kind of divvy it up so that like we're not overly stressed, because we've also got day jobs and jobs that what we get paid to then be able to do what we're doing in 2 Year Break. So for example, my job in the band is mainly like creating the content. I've kind of stopped being the one that posts the content. I kind of say like, this needs to be posted, or we should do this, and then I might make the video or do the picture or whatever, but then George will be the one that maybe posts it. So like my role is kind of creating the content and coming up with the potential ideas, and then overseeing and running any adverts we need to do. And then George is he's an accountant by like his day job is he is an accountant, so he will put all of our receipts through and everything so that we make sure that everything's logged, and he'll be the one that checks on our investment that we're all putting in, how much money we've got. He'll have a massive spreadsheet that
profit and loss sheet,
and he's got this lovely big red bold text that he puts in that says danger zone, and I just never look at it because there's like a
zone.
Like if you go like it in a year later, if you look on our spreadsheet, like he works out from last year like how much money we made in merch sales, how much money we made in ticket sales and all that stuff, and then he kind of tries to do a rough estimate of like what the next year will look like.
Awesome. And
there's always a danger zone that just slowly gets pushed further and further back as we make more. I can't explain it, but he has a danger zone, which is like, this is where if we don't do this, it all goes plummeting.
Okay.
And it slowly gets moved across throughout. So like this year, right now, might have been a danger zone a year or 2 years ago.
Right.
But then because we've done everything correctly and the income's like, we have to basically, there's bits where it says danger zone, and then there's bits where it says like, we're gonna make $3,000 in like September 2022, and me and my mate Dan, the bassist, we're like, where have you come up with that number? And he's like, we were playing a show then, and like he's worked out where like, and
so he does all the kind of like financial planning side, like
he
keeps tabs on everything that's going in, that's coming in and going out,
and then he works
also
out
projects based on
like if last year you made £100, next year you might make £250 or whatever. Like obviously they're just examples, but like he's done all that. And I think the danger zone is where like he hasn't worked out where that money might come from, so then it might start plummeting, because it's like, so that's where
I see.
I think that's where
so it's a bit of a red flag of like, right, we need to bring in money.
So like for example, when we were doing the album and we'd worked out the crowdfunding side and everything, he was like, but 2 months later we've then got to pay all that stuff, and if we don't have that money, that's a bit that we're going to start going into the danger zone.
So that then kind of incentivizes you to go, right, we need to launch a new hoodie or something,
and things like that, and it's just that's where the show will need to be booked to push it all back. But
so you're kind of like ads and content, George is like finances,
he's also a bit band managery. He he
operations
will,
manager.
he'll do like a lot of the emails to people, and
George,
by the way, like hands up, I think does the most work out of all of us, and I don't know how he does it, but like if it wasn't for George, we definitely wouldn't be where we are now, because he definitely holds the ship together. Dan kind of used to do a bit of the booking stuff and the emails, and he's definitely helped like set up our wireless rig and things like that. He's kind of took a step back, I think, because he's about to have a baby.
Fair play.
So fair enough to him. And then Charlie is like our, you know, his main role in the band is songwriting, and although that means there's certain months where nothing's going on, he will dip in and help where necessary with the skills that he can help with. But he kind of really focuses on, like, he kind of calls himself seasonal, like he's like a seasonal like person that gets involved. But
yeah,
if he wasn't the one really pushing the song, because when we do start writing the album, it's not just like, oh well, he's gonna write a lot of it. It's more like he's like, have you done this yet? Have we worked on this yet? And he kind of like manages essentially like that
so
whole
like
process.
Project manages the creative process.
Yeah, and he will be quite brutal about it sometimes and be like, you know, like when we did the album, it was like every Sunday he'd be like, right, every Sunday I will be writing music. You can either join me or not join me, but it's getting done and it has to be done, and I'll be doing it. And it's like, these are the times we're doing it, and like, and then he'll liaise with our producer Clint a lot and write together. So like, although songwriting is part of the band, like the more fun side of things, there is a lot that goes on there that I wouldn't really.
Yeah,
I'm not that. I've got a little bit more like that with like, have you done this yet? Are we going to be writing this yet? But that's kind of where Charlie thrives. But don't worry, I've got a lot more work for him when we eventually start our fan club, because he needs to do some stuff once a month.
yeah. There's a lot of admin like to the fan club stuff for sure. Well, that's awesome that you've all got like your own kind of set roles aside from like rehearsing, performing, etc. Like it's that's wicked, and I think that's sort of testament to the progress that you guys have made in the last few years. It's something that really impressed me when we started working together, like how on it you guys were on the sort of behind the scenes business and marketing stuff, and just the overall productivity and the way that you kind of manage yourselves and the way that everyone's willing to like roll their sleeves up and get involved and do that shit that so many artists don't want to do. It's funny, you know, you should say that though, like that, like sort of like how you kind of, so much of it is like all the back end stuff, especially as a DIY artist business that's doing good numbers, you know, and has essentially you know, your fan base is hundreds or thousands or, you know, or more of loyal customers, and you have to look after them and serve them, and there's a lot that goes into that, even on like 500 paid customers or 1,000 paid customers. Like, it's a lot for a small business of people that have other jobs or whatever and are, you know, performing and writing and everything in the band as well. There's a lot of organisational stuff that goes into managing that correctly. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think that I've been saying this quite a lot recently, that in Death of Guitar Pop, where it's Johnny and my business, we spend 80%, I would say, of our time on the business side of Death of Guitar
20%
Pop, in front of the laptop, do you know what I mean? And 20% on performing, writing and recording. But that's kind of cool because it makes that 20% a real treat when we get to do it. You know?
Yeah, although there are some of the laptop stuff you get all excited about. And
oh
like,
man, no, I buzz off all that.
I know you do as well, but like the adverts, when you set up an ad and then sell a ticket and you're like, that was because that advert I did.
Oh man, like, yeah, you get such a dopamine hit when your Shopify is pinging in it. So like the Shopify is the online merch, the e-commerce platform that we all use for the bands and Hookings, in it. And it makes a cha-ching noise every time you sell something.
Yeah.
So when you launch like a limited edition vinyl or put a tour on sale or something, it's just cha-chinging all night.
Yeah,
it's
and just full disclosure, it's not just because we're excited we've made money. It's more because we're like,
no, because people give a shit.
People actually care about my band, and you're like, cha-ching.
Yeah. But I remember one night we'd launch something with Death of Guitar Pop, and I was so smug because my phone was just cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I was like, fucking hell, this is great. Like, I'm making a living as a musician. And like went to bed or whatever, and like just laying in bed with Steph, and like it'd been cha-ching, and she was like, "You're gonna have to fucking put that on silent." I was like, "I want to hear it all night. I don't care if I have a shit night's sleep. Like, put it on fucking silent." I'm like, all right. but yeah, so much goes into this stuff, and I think that if you learn to embrace the hustle side of being an independent artist, and like just fully embrace learning the marketing and business side of what that takes to build a fan base direct to consumer without having to lean on labels and mainstream media coverage and everything, it's really fulfilling, man, and you learn a lot of skills that you can then monetize in other areas, do you know what I mean? And you can use those skills to sort of pivot, and I mean, like kind of you have with Hookings. So for a bit of context for the listeners, like I was about to say, like,
when I joined you and I was really inquisitive and learning through you what you were doing for your break, I decided I didn't want to do my 9-to-5 job that I really didn't. I liked the people there, but I didn't enjoy what I was doing. So I was a bit like a lost puppy, and I kept going, "Ollie, do you need any? You don't need any help in your business, do you yet?" And eventually, little sad-eyed Brad managed to get old. Like, you know, you maybe shed a tear for him and was like, "Oh, fuck it, coming in." But yeah, like I learnt a lot from doing all that stuff, and then I think that helped show you that he was like, "Oh, Brad actually does know what he's doing, and that he'd actually like be a useful asset to."
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So no, I think we were joking like right from our first mentorship session, because like all the questions you were asking, and then you like would take. You had a few little hacks that I didn't know of. Yeah. And I was like, fucking hell, man, I need to give you a job.
That was it, yeah.
Obviously, I had no budget to employ anyone, but it's cool that we manifested that shit. But yeah, like, so do you mind if we talk a little bit about like the personal, like what happened, like that? Do you remember when we went for that lunch and that?
I do remember.
Where you were at with things with your day job at the time.
Yeah, I don't mind talking about that. I mean, cool. I talk about being mentally unwell in all of my songs, so it's no different now.
It's out there.
Yeah, it's alright.
Cool. Yeah. So go on, mate. So we'd been doing like probably a few months of marketing with 2 Year Break.
Yeah.
I mean, going really well, wasn't it? It hit the ground running, and you guys were building a lot of traction. And yeah, like we both liked the idea of you working for Hookings, but Hookings was, you know, it was just me back then, do you know what I mean? And me and my laptop in my flat or whatever, just mentoring, like coaching bands and managing marketing campaigns and stuff. So wasn't really in a position to take anyone on, but like the idea of expanding things and having other DIY musicians coming on board to help fellow DIY musicians. And then yeah, like you sent me a text one day, didn't you? It was a really sad text. Like,
I really can't remember which, by the way, I think it's because, not to be all soppy, I've been so much happier in the past few years that I've kind of forgotten what. I know that I was sad, but I can't fully remember why I texted you or what was making me sad. But it was I know that it was quite a deep text, and just saying like
I think you've been signed off of work for like
oh yeah, my God, I forgot that. I was signed off for about a month.
Was it as long as that? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I went back. Which, I don't, like, the system's a bit flawed, because there was something to do with if I'd have gone back for one day and then cried about it and then went off again for a month, I would have got paid for that whole time I was off. But because I didn't do that and I hadn't worked there long enough, I didn't get paid for that whole month.
I remember that.
And that was also, it was like, so if I'd have lied to you and been like, yeah, I'm happy again today, and then gone sad again the next day, I would have got paid. But
yeah,
because I was trying to be morally correct and be like,
or whatever, yeah.
No, I need to stay off because I'm still unwell, I didn't get paid for it. But yeah, I just wasn't happy, and it's a running theme in my whole, like, since I was, you know, like, getting jobs. Like, there's other things I've been unhappy about anyway, but in terms of job side of things, it was just a running theme. Like, every job I had, I'd enjoy it for a little while because it, you know, it was new, and I'd be being paid for it, and then they would get to a point where I'd realise, why the fuck am I doing this? But I didn't understand why I felt that way, because I just assumed, well, everyone else does these jobs and everyone else is getting on, so why do I feel sad about it? And then, yeah, I think seeing you doing what you was doing and being in that place and realising how much I cared about, because I liked my metal band, but there's something different about 2 Year Break, and I really wanted that. I really wanted 2 Year Break to be something that I put my like whole like heart and soul into. So yeah, I think seeing you doing what you was doing and helping the bands and realising that all these skills I've learnt through my hobbies after work and in school and college and that, and being really into my games and making stupid YouTube videos when I was a kid and editing them, like I realised that all them skills, that's what I want to be doing. And I tried to get jobs in doing similar things like that, and you either have to accept that you're going to get paid zero, like being an internship, or you know someone or someone that's going to get you in. Whereas I guess to an extent I knew you, so that's how I got into here. But like, yeah, seeing you do all that made me realise that I need to be doing something that isn't this, because if I keep doing these 9 to 5 office jobs I'm going to end up, I don't know where I'm going to end up.
It was not aligned with your passion whatsoever.
Not at all,
that job that you were doing, and obviously I can relate.
None of them were.
I spoke about it before on the podcast. I've been in the same position as you. I think that's why we hit it off straight away.
Because we've been in a similar boat.
Yeah. But yeah, so you text me and you'd been signed off work because you were unhappy, and you sort of said, like, it's just this fucking job, man. It's like, you know...
We went for a little panini, didn't we?
Yeah, you were like, do you know anyone in, like, music or media, or does Hookings have anything, or do you know anyone in music or media that might have some kind of, like, job in the creative space? Yeah. And yeah, so that got me thinking. But my first point of call was like, I was thinking, well, I think I texted you back and said, look, mate, I've not got the capacity to take anyone on, as much as I'd love to, like, try and grow this artist business with you. I'm not in a position to right now, but mate, let's go for a fucking bit of lunch or whatever, and just have a chat, because I've been in that position many times, and often didn't really have anyone to talk to, like, that as a kind of mentor or whatever, that had managed to get out of that and done something like creative that they were passionate about as a job. So yeah, I just felt like it was important to at least, like, if I can get together and have a chat. And it was cool, wasn't it, man? That was a defining day.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, sometimes I drive past that little bench and I'm like, oh yeah, that was where we essentially somehow ended up working out that we're going to work something out to help me, you know, change my mindset on things and get out of this rut that I'm stuck into. Yeah,
and what I could see in you, which was like what I could relate to, having, like, with my knowing what my personality tics are, I was like, fucking hell, he's got so much to give, because like how much work and drive how much drive you have and how much work you put into 2-year break, and the way that you were in our mentorship sessions and that, and just the work rate and enthusiasm, like I could just see, like, he's like me, he needs to do something he's passionate about, and then he'll have like a fucking engine like no other, and he'll find his way and do great things, do you know what I mean, and find that, like, you know, fill that void that he's felt in his career his whole life, because he's doing something that's just not, he's a passion driven person, and a lot of everyday day jobs aren't, you know, they're how can I put this, like, if you're sort of a musician, like creative type that's into just a creative artist type, it's very, very hard to find a conventional day job that's going to be aligned with your
and it's very mentally draining if you're doing something you don't want to do, but you can't do what you want to do. You're just constantly like battling with yourself, but somehow we worked it all out and
found a way.
Yeah, look at me now, mum.
So we had this day then where, like, we went for a bit of lunch and went for a walk, sat on a bench for a bit, a random bench in Brentwood, didn't we? And just I kind of just sort of, I guess, like, I was just trying to reassure you and let you know that, like,
you just let me know
you'd find your way like I had.
Do you know, I remember you offered, you said, like, why don't you, it might not have been straight away then, but you said something like, why don't you, I've got someone that, like, you know, might need, like, you could do something part-time there and then do a little bit for me, like, and it was Sherry's.
Oh, right.
And you tried to get, we were potentially, I was going to see if I could get a job at Sherry's like working on the store, which is
Yeah.
like a cool mod clothing brand, so that then I could do that, which is a little bit more interesting than
Yeah.
although it's kind of, you know, might look like going backwards from like getting a decent job in like an office or whatever, but it would be mentally better for me, and then you would be able to potentially teach me some stuff and do stuff with you. But then eventually we come to the agreement that it was better for my mental health to drop the job and become an apprentice with you.
Yeah.
On an apprentice wage, so that we could build this business to a point where like I could have a full-time job, which was so much. There were times where it was like a struggle because I was 25 or something, and like that's going from like a comfortable, again talking about like your family and friends don't get it. They're like, why the fuck have you just dropped your wage to do? And it's like, because I don't care about money really. As long as I can do everything I need to do, my mental health's more important than earning a nice big fat paycheck at the end of the month. Yeah, because I'd rather earn a nice big fat paycheck doing something I like than sitting there crying every fucking month in an office doing something I'm really not passionate about.
Yeah. So I can't think, after that day we had, I was sort of like, the way my fucking brain works, I was obsessing of like, how can I give Brad a job? Do you know what I mean? It would be awesome, like, because I could just see there's so much potential, like what you just described, of us growing things together and working together and helping bands. But I didn't have any budget for marketing, like expansion, anything like that at the time. Just sort of had a few monthly clients that I was like mentoring and managing the ads for. But it was actually Martin, a keys player in Deaf Guitar Pop, shout out to Hammer Hands. He's become a little bit of a business mentor to me. He's got a successful like office removal company. So he's been in business for like a few years himself, and he was like looking to government scheme apprenticeships, because I was also at the point where I was finding everything quite hard to manage as well, and I wanted to grow a business, but I was sort of stuck in like just having a profitable job for myself, and yeah, it was when I looked into the apprenticeships, I was like, okay, well, don't know if Brad's going to go for it because it's apprenticeship wage, it's lower than minimum wage, because that's all I could afford to pay at the time. But the bonus was, so you got about 12 grand's worth of tuition from the college, and it was a digital marketing apprenticeship, wasn't it? You ended up doing for a couple of years.
And I ended up getting a distinction, baby.
Oi, go on, brothers. Smashed it. Between us we got it going, didn't we? And fair play to you, mate, for fucking putting your balls on the line and walking away from a steady salary job. I mean, like, in fairness, you did have like age on your side a little bit, in that you still at home with your mum at the time, so
yeah, I didn't have any like,
if you had a mortgage looming over or something, it would have been trickier, but I still think you would have done it, 'cause you've just got that bullish nature in you.
Yeah, we would have done some form of it.
Yeah, but even at like 25 or whatever, to go from earning like a average salary or whatever to then going way below minimum wage and trusting me and joining this startup that didn't have an office at the time, do you know what I mean, but just believing in like me and like your band and what was going on enough to go for it. Fair play to you, man. That's massive balls. So yeah, like it, like, and we've definitely felt it out as we've gone along as to like what your role was going to be. But I'd already been teaching you the ads with a 2-year break, so I lost a fucking client there, which was a bit of a gut.
Yeah, don't worry, I stayed with him. I stayed with him for a little while, but then I was
lost
like,
the client, gained the fucking.
I don't need him anymore.
So it was like lots of digital marketing stuff at first. And then, I don't know how, that was it. You told me you'd done like graphics before at college when you was younger.
Yeah, and photography.
Yeah, so we started, and you had a camera, didn't you? It was quite old, the camera, but it could do a job. So you started coming out and filming a bit of content for Dog P, and some of the other bands. And doing like posters and a bit of album artwork and stuff, and that kind of grew into like us investing in some really good camera equipment. And you
trialed me first. We hired the camera that we used. We hired the cameras off of my mates that filmed 2 Year Breaks Changed My Mind
for singles night
for your first video, and you said look, film my video, I trust that you'll do a good job, and then that way we can see if it's what you like and how we can progress your skills. And then I don't know, like, I'll be completely like open and honest, I've always been one of them people that, like, when I played guitar, some guy would come up to me and be like, oh yeah, so what pedals do you use this kind of like frequency and this distortion and all that, and I'd just be like, I just play guitar, I know I'm good at it, I don't have any idea about the ins and outs of things. And it was the same in college, and the same with like when I first, with that giving me that camera, I knew how it should look and how it should work, didn't have a clue about how the shutter speed should work. I just knew that this looks right and this is how it should work. And you gave me that camera and we filmed singles night, and you was like over the moon with the video.
Come out the bollocks.
And then it was like, right, we're getting you a camera, like we'll invest in a proper camera and do a bit of research, and we can start lending you out to some of our bands, and then somehow from there I've gone from that to now like a really confident videographer. That I'm not embarrassed to be like, this is what we cost. And
absolutely,
whereas
mate.
back then, if you went, oh yeah, let's we'll charge the band that, I'd be like, no.
You was nervous at first, but again, it's like what we were talking about earlier, coming out your comfort zone, innit?
Have you noticed there's a running pattern here since from joining 2 Year Break? That was when I started making like leaps of like jumping into something that I had no idea if I'd be able to do, and all of them things seem to be the best decisions I've made. Whereas before then I was very like plain sailing, I'm not going to it's too risky to do that. Whereas like from there it's like, join 2 Year Break and become a singer you've never sung before, try and push Ollie to let you do digital marketing, but you've never really done any of that until joining. Like all of them things have been like the best things I've ever done, and it's because they're things that you're too scared to do, so you kind of like a lot of the time you're like, nah, I won't do that, like I might be shit at it or whatever. But actually I really recommend to everyone, just do things you think you're going to be. If you're shit at it, then you probably, but like if you think that you can do it but you're too nervous to do it, then maybe just try and do it, because actually it probably will end up being worth doing, because you obviously, part of you probably knows you can do it. It's just the way we're brought up, and all the people around us probably have taught you to be a bit more safer.
There's an entrepreneur that I really admire called Grant Cardone. He's written loads of good books about entrepreneurship. One of his sayings is, commit first, figure it out later. And that's it's a great kind of
it is I do think there's some things you shouldn't commit to, because like the X Factor, some of the X Factor singers that are like terrible, someone's told them to, like, they're really good when they're not. And I feel like there's certain things that maybe if you haven't got it, maybe don't go for it. But if you've got a little bit of a gut feeling that
that's it.
If you've got that gut feeling that you think you can do it, then you probably can do it.
The imposter syndrome, because even though your gut's saying, I know I can do it, your inner critic's going, nah man, you're gonna fucking humiliate yourself.
This is gonna be terrible.
So you got to learn to just trust your gut and not listen to all that nonsense in your head.
Cut out the noise.
Cool, man. So it's really cool how it's progressed, isn't it? So you started working here in I think it was early 2019, I think it was.
June the 3rd.
Was that when it was?
I think so. I could be wrong.
Quite flattered. So, and it's been awesome, hasn't it, mate? We've really expanded, and it's not just coaching musicians and doing a bit of ads and that. Now we do it's like a full one-stop shop for D.I.Y musicians, isn't it? We make music videos, websites, artwork. We mentor artists. We run, we manage release campaigns, we run digital marketing campaigns and teach artists how to do that themselves.
We become your best friends, you know, all that.
Yeah, drug dealers.
But no, yeah, it's expanded massively, and like I was really proud of all the things that 2 Year Break have accomplished. But then when I've working with Hookings Management, you then become proud of all the other, like it's so fun to watch the bands that you're like helping thrive, because there's like you're all working together. So like we're all in the same boat of like, we might do this as a job, but like both of us have a band, and our goal in life is to make that band go somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you meet people that are in that same boat as you, that they're like, I just want my band to do what it's doing. So then when you're working with them to get them to that stage that you've been on, or even excel the stage that you've been on, but whatever, it's a really humbling job to be in. And experiencing that is, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I love it, and I'm just happy that we can offer that for people, and we can all, like, everyone works together to like see that growth for everyone. It's a cool thing to be part of.
Yeah, well, what I was saying earlier about the Shopify pinging and that, we get just as much as a dopamine hit when we launch another band's like crowdfunder and it goes off. Do you know what I mean? Like we're just, well, one, it's nice, it's reassuring that you're doing your job properly, but yeah, two, it's like you're, like you say, you're an artist yourself, and you know what that meant for you when you first experienced that. So to be able to play a part in like facilitating that experience for another artist, it's a really cool thing, isn't it?
Big time.
Cool. So let's get into some of the nitty gritty of 2 Year Break. So the Facebook and Instagram ads we've touched on. I think just a couple more things I want to go through on that I think would be beneficial for the listeners. Is started on Facebook, didn't it, for about a year, but now you're very Instagram heavy with your band.
Yeah.
And you've gone from kind of like really hammering that pop punk niche, where your sound's kind of evolved and you've taken influence from like Enter Shikari and Don Broco and artists like that. You've gone for a kind of a broader rock audience now, haven't you?
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about how that's been, and how you've managed to kind of like make that transition onto Instagram to a slightly different target demographic and still maintain that level of growth?
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely been harder to target bands and like to get them people on board, because it's not as simple anymore as just like a really niche, like we're pop punk. Because if you say we're pop punk, like, although there's still loads of little subgenres in pop punk, it's like, okay, cool, that makes sense to me. Whereas we've now gone, there's like synths going on, there's like pop punk coming in, there's like metal influences coming in. We just sound like what 2 Year Break is now. So it's a lot harder to go, we can't advertise saying, do you like pop punk? Because we're not really pop punk. But you can't really advertise saying, do you like heavy metal? Because we're not heavy metal either. We're just like some weird fusion of all 3, 4 or 5 different like genres, and essentially we're just an alternative rock band now. So if I'd have stayed as just pop punk, I think the band would have probably grown a lot more than what we have now. But I didn't want to stay. Like, I think what we've developed now is a lot more what we want to do, and what as a band we want to sound like. And we've found where I think we thrive as a band. Like, what we're making now is where we were always probably going to end up being. But so yeah, we've gone from doing that, do you like pop punk adverts, to now we had to kind of evolve and work out different ways of advertising. And I think the reason we switched to Instagram is just because the times of like social media is always fluctuating on what platform someone's on and what people are doing on there. Facebook really worked with us in the beginning, but then when we switched to that more broader audience, I guess, and because just the times change all the time, we realised that all the bands that we like at the moment and all the new bands that are upcoming that are getting signed to labels and that, it just seemed to be, you'd go on their Facebook and they'd have like 2,000, 3,000 followers, but then you go on their Instagram and they've got like 20k, 30k, and we just noticed that there was like a switch in like the kind of thing we were doing over to Instagram. But because also we'd changed genre of music slightly, we couldn't use that do you like pop punk in Instagram anymore. So we had to be, like I said, we had to adapt basically. And I think then I come up with, instead of also, if you just say, what we realise is like if we said, oh, do you like Don Broco, you might like us, or do you like Enter Shikari, people saw that as like people got too protective over those band names and was like, stop trying to be this band or something.
Do you think that was like, because that does happen like on those style of ads all the time, but sometimes it's just the odd troll. But did you find with like this, with these particular bands, their fan bases were like fiercely protective of like, you can't just say,
yeah,
like,
100%, you can't,
right?
yeah. So like now we still target people that like Enter Shikari and Don Broco, but we get, no one goes, you've copied Don Broco, because they're not being initially told to think about Don Broco.
We sound like Don Broco.
Yeah, so we've
which
now
works for a lot of our
it
bands.
So by the way, like it, I would like, there's other bands I would say you can say that and people don't care.
Yeah,
I just noticed for us anyway, there was certain bands where people were a bit too precious about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we changed it to, do you like Kerrang? Which, although Kerrang is like, you know, it's not as prominent as it used to be. Like when we were younger, it was like everyone would turn the TV on and put Kerrang on and listen to their music there. It's still got a massive following, and all those people that like pop punk, metal, new metal, rock, everything is all in that Kerrang area. So we kind of just started saying, do you like Kerrang? Then you might like us, or you might be your new favourite band. But we'd still target Kerrang music, but then we'd also target Don Broco and Shikari, Bring Me the Horizon, You Me at Six Still, and all them. But no one knows that no one knows when like seeing that advert that we're singling those people out. So then therefore in the comment section, you might still get a, you're not rock, or this is shit, but you'd stop getting the a lot less people started being precious about it, and actually you'd start seeing like, oh, these guys sound a bit like Don Broco, I love this music, or something, instead of it being like, well, why are you trying to be like Don Broco? Because that we'd got rid of that that word Don Broco, or that word in Shikari would like throw people off. So yeah, we had to adapt, and we went to Instagram. But you know, recently I've noticed for marketing side of things, Instagram's great for finding new people to follow, but actually when we're selling tickets and giving away things or whatever, we still run it on Facebook instead. So
when you retarget it, so your warm audience.
Yeah, and because if you're on Instagram, you're normally got a Facebook account anyway. I mean, we still do put it to Instagram as well, but we've noticed that actually we seem to make more sales through Facebook, but more people come through the door in the initial phase through Instagram.
Right.
Don't know why. Maybe it's just a different mindset on Instagram. You're not, adverts still people will quickly scroll past, whereas an advert on Facebook, people seem to be a little bit more, you know, open to clicking on a shop now button or something. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't really know what I'm trying to explain, but yeah, just we had to adapt with everything and go from Facebook to Instagram. I think it's
really interesting though that you've done all that stuff. Do you know what I mean? And like changing genre, and then seeing that your kind of demographic has moved over to Instagram, and being able to kind of take what you did with the Facebook, the fundamentals of the ads that you run on Facebook, but kind of reskin it for Instagram, and yeah, also have to think about this different demographic of bands, and I think it's really impressive that you've been able to make that transition. And because one of the things that we've done well at with Dog P and other bands in Hookings Management is kind of like really like with different artists really aligning ourselves with like definitive niches. So pop punk was yours, you know, Block 33 Mod, us is Scar in it. The Bracknell are very much like lad rock indie, so like Oasis, Kasabian, Verve, etc. But yeah, I think that you're like where you are in like the rock space now is quite broad, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And
we've peaked too early.
Well, it's working though. Fucking
no,
works
it is
wicked, mate, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does work.
So yeah, I think that's really impressive, and I definitely think that your skills on Instagram as a marketer, you've taught me a lot. Do you know what I mean? On how to get the most out of that platform, because recently we launched an ad for Deaf Guitar Pop, a fan growth ad for Deaf Guitar Pop on Instagram that's focused more on an indie demographic because we have that crossover element to what we do, and the way in which you kind of like frame the ad, the style of the ad, and the text that you used and everything, that's a massive part as to why that ad's doing well. We've just launched one for the Bracknell as well, whereas like on Facebook you don't kind of have the caption, like the ad copy as part of the video, the text. You just write it in the copy, and that's how we grab people's attention over there. But
it's even really silly things like, I won't go too in depth about it, but like the ratio size of your thing, doing a square, it works on Instagram, but doing, I think it's 4x5, which is like a slightly more stretched square, it's basically a bit more of a rectangle, that fills up more of your Instagram page.
So the Facebook having a square music video on Facebook works, but on Instagram it's that more kind of like portrait style video.
Yeah, so you can put a square on Facebook, a 4x5 on Facebook, a landscape on Facebook, but on Instagram you can do all that as well, but the 4x5 is, in my opinion, the best one to do, because when someone's scrolling with a square you might still see the post below, whereas with a 4x5 it stretches so much so that when you're scrolling, that your video takes up the whole of their phone, with the text underneath, like they can't see anything else but your advert. So I know they're really picky things,
that's
but like
really clever
little
hack,
things
though,
like that
works.
Just because we used to do 1:1 ratio, which is a square, which did work, but I noticed that when you switch to that 4x5, it just slightly does a bit better because it's consuming the whole of your phone. So yeah, just little tips like that. I think I did that for the Bracknell ad and the Dog P one you did.
Well. Yeah, and they're all working well, aren't they? So
yeah, I think they also now let you advertise a bit longer on Instagram. Used to be limited to how many minutes you could have on a video, didn't you?
Right. Yeah.
I think they've like.
Yeah, I think like back in the day, like a feed ad was like a minute maybe. Or something, or I don't know.
Which is why I think we always were a little bit put off by doing it on there, because the way we try and gain fans and followers is by, if they watch a certain amount of video, you can tell how engaged someone was. Whereas if on Instagram it's just a minute's not always enough to, gauge how much someone liked something, because they're only listening to a minute section of a song, whereas like a full music video, if they make it 3 minutes in, you're like, oh well, they definitely must have. If they hated it, then why were they watching it all the way for 3 minutes? And if they like, so you can tell from things like that, which I think was why we were put off by Instagram at first.
Yeah, I think that was also different about Instagram marketing. This is something I picked up from you, is on Facebook, marketing a whole music video works really well, but on Instagram, having like a showreel style ad of different clips of the band and different songs coming in, and it being that sort of quicker 1.5 minute to 2 minute rather than a full video, more like an old school like 90s TV album ad where it's just clips of the band and like selling the album. It's like that kind of style, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That seems to work better on Instagram, doesn't it? Like having like multiple clips or just a clip of a music video.
Yeah, get like the best bits
the start
of
a music video and hoping they'll click through to YouTube to watch the full video. It's more just like, rather than having any kind of click through to YouTube or Spotify, especially when you're going to a cold audience, or at least when you're going to a cold audience, you just want a kind of shop window, don't you, that's hopefully going to get likes and followers, that just like is a little kind of snapshot into your universe as a band, isn't it? Whereas Facebook full music videos seem to work better for us, don't they?
Yeah, I think like we've gone into it before with our clients. I think there's you have to work out where your audience is on what platform, which like we spoke about earlier, but like certain bands will work better on Facebook. Sometimes they might work better on Facebook, but now they have to go to Instagram because people have moved. But like now, it's changed a lot, but it used to just be like, we'll just always do Facebook, whereas now it's a bit more like, all right, well, your band's better on Facebook when you're really just targeting that ska audience.
Because it's an older demographic.
Whereas if you're trying to reach out to that younger audience for like the indie stuff, you're going to go Instagram because that's where they're more situated.
Oi oi, Silky here. I hope you've enjoyed part 1 of my chat with Bradley Tyler. Go and check out the second part of our chat in the next episode of the Lifer Musician podcast, which is available now on all major streaming platforms. Nice one.